Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
And good Thursday to you here. It's December 18th. Glad you're with us 1 week away from Christmas. Have you got your shopping done? The answer here is no. Coming to you one more day from Atlanta, but my work is done with the Georgia High School Football Championships. I appreciate the GHSA and Georgia Public Broadcasting for allowing me to do those. It's so fun the past 12 years doing that TV work every year. We've got a couple of great guests today. Tonight, it's the NCAA Final Four in volleyball in Kansas City. Number one seed Pitt taking on Texas A&M. And then a couple of recent national champs, Kentucky versus Wisconsin in the second game. Abby Schnable is going to join us talking about those matchups tonight. And then J.J. Stankovitz also coming along for the Indianapolis Colts. What a story there. News off the field with the death of their owner, how they adjusted to that. Earlier this year, of course, Old Man Rivers coming in at quarterback, how that was a success. And we'll break that down, talk with him about that. It'll be a good conversation. Let's get to some headlines right now. Quiet day in sports on Wednesday. That usually happens as we get closer to Christmas. But some crazy off-field news we'll talk about here today. One, the Chicago Bears have now expanded their search for a new stadium site beyond the state of Illinois. In a letter sent to fans on Wednesday, Bears president Kevin Warren said, Northwest Indiana is among the locations the franchise will explore to build a new dome stadium. The franchise has spent several years searching for a spot after more than 50 years at Chicago's Soldier Field. They'd hoped to build a spot there along the lakefront next to Soldier Field. It was a great rendering, the idea, turning Soldier Field into a big open parks area. By the way, fun fact, Chicago has more golf courses per capita than any city in the country. Look it up, even more than Miami. Who knew? So they plan to go downtown. Couldn't work that out with the city. They bought a site, the former Arlington Heights racetrack, years ago in the suburbs to put a site there. They looked there. They wanted state assurances they would improve the roads and infrastructure. The state says, look, we got money problems, not a priority for us in 2026. So all of this, they were trying to get this, they wanted to break ground by September in order to begin bidding for Super Bowls by 2031. That's not happening now. They're not breaking ground until 2026. So we will see. Their lease expires in 2033. They're in the midst of their best season since going 12-4 back in 2018. That was their lone double-digit win season in the past decade. 10-4 now, first place in the NFC North, have a chance to gain some separation with a big divisional showdown with Green Bay at Soldier Field Saturday night. Now, by the way, the whole thing of them going to another state is not a big surprise. This is out of the old Chicago playbook and other cities too. It was more than 30 years ago when White Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf flirted with going down to St. Pete, that brand new dome they just built down there. That threat, and he got his former law school buddy, James Thompson, who was the governor at the time, to say, no, we'll get the funds for you to build a new Comiskey Park. And there you go. By the way, the first park built before Camden Yards. So immediately it was like obsolete because Baltimore changed the game. And then a few years later, about 20 years ago or so, St. Louis did the same thing. The Cardinals did the same thing with St. Louis, saying, you won't play ball for a new Busch Stadium here? We'll look across the river into Illinois at East St. Louis. Yeah, we'll do that. It'll be facing this way, facing the arch. Well, they got their way. So I'm not a betting man. My limit is $20. I will put down my 20 saying the Bears will never build a stadium in Northwest Indiana. So there you go. Okay, speaking of Chicago, well, for the second time in 5 years, ownership of the Pittsburgh Penguins is changing hands. Fenway Sports Group selling the franchise to a Chicago-based Hoffman family investment group. This is per NHL insider Frank Severali. Sale price $1.7 billion, according to Sportsnet. Okay, some college coaching news. Ohio University firing coach Brian Smith for cause on Wednesday, saying Smith violated his contract by, quote, engaging in serious professional misconduct and participating in activities that reflect unfavorably on the university, end quote. No specifics provided. Smith went 8-4 in his first regular season as Bobcats coach. He had been placed on leave on December 1st for undisclosed reasons. His attorney, Rex Elliott, said in a statement, we vigorously dispute Ohio University's grounds for the termination for cause of Coach Brian Smith. He is shocked and dismayed by this turn of events and we plan to fight this wrongful termination to protect his good name. The Bobcats will be led by interim coach John Hauser as they take on UNLV on December 23rd in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. Total of 9 games played Wednesday across the college basketball world. No major upsets. In the men's game, the closest was Vandy's 7-point road win over Memphis, 77-70. Duke Miles with 22 points as number 13 Vanderbilt weathered a second-half Memphis rally to remain undefeated. Women's side, 5 games played. Easy night for the ranked teams, including number 1 UConn, number 2 Texas, 14th ranked Ole Miss, number 16 Louisville, and 18th ranked North Carolina. How close were these games, you ask? Well, not very. The average margin of victory in those 5 was a whopping 49 points. Okay, producer Tony is with our first guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And, one of the big events happening tonight, which not a lot of people may know about, but you really should. And you really should take some time to tune in this evening, because there is a great event that is going to take place in Kansas City, I believe. And it is the women's Final Four for volleyball. And if you haven't watched any of the tournament up to now, you really should tune in this evening, because these ladies play with immense passion, tremendous skill, and a lot of heart, and they lay it all out on the line every single match. And we are lucky enough today to be joined by Abby Schnable. She is the Pittsburgh beat writer for the Pitt Panthers, who are in the Final Four. She works for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And so we're going to kind of break down a little bit of this Final Four and talk about this match. But Abby, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Sports IQ.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about volleyball because it's not as talked about. So I'm grateful to be here.
Well, I'm going to give you a little insight into my enjoyment of volleyball. I've been a high school football official here in Georgia for 25 years. Recently stepped away from that because it get a little long in the tooth, but I picked up volleyball about 3 years ago to keep my love of officiating alive. And watching girls, even at the young ages in middle school and below that in grade school, just their love of the game, the enjoyment that they have playing is just really, I like to say, warmed an old man's heart. I really enjoy watching it. So now I've been watching the women's game on TV, and it has been so awesome to see. Give us a little breakdown of Pitt and their season and how they got to this point.
Yeah, so everyone kind of thought this was going to be a rebuild year for Pitt because they lost 3 four-time All-Americans. One of their best outside hitters, and Tori Stafford, transferred over to Texas, but they kept National Player of the Year Olivia Babcock on the team and kind of just had to fill in around her. And getting a transfer setter, which can always be a little bit of an adjustment, elevating a sophomore outside hitter, lots of freshmen on the team. And so I definitely, coming in, didn't really expect Pitt to necessarily make it this far again, simply because in theory, it should have been a down year. But, they started their season off 0-2 against some really tough Nebraska and Florida teams. And then pretty much from there on out, it's been smooth sailing with, 2 other losses built in there, but a lot of fighting, a lot of grit from this team. It's a very Olivia Babcock focus, but lately down this tournament run where they played UMBC, Michigan, Minnesota, and then Purdue to get to this point now against Texas A&M on Thursday. And everyone's been stepping up lately. It's not just been Olivia Babcock. Brooke Mosier, their setter, has really taken a huge leap. Bree Kelly, their middle blocker, continues to be a phenomenal player. And then recently their freshman outside hitter, Marina Pizzell, was named a all-region tournament player, which is it's really cool to see this team that is fairly young, fairly inexperienced. They only have 2 returning starters from last year's Final Four team, and they made it back for their 5th straight Final Four, which is just really impressive to see.
Well, that is the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because that is really impressive. A team in any sport, I don't care if it's football, basketball, softball, baseball, when you are talking about a program that can get to 5 consecutive Final Fours, tell us a little bit about the culture of this program and maybe the coach, because obviously coaching has a lot to do with getting these girls to this Final Four.
Yeah, Dan Fisher took over this program in about 13 years ago. He's in his 13th season now. And in 2016, he took them to their first tournament in a really long time. And since then, they've been a staple. They finally in 2021 made their first Final Four. And then just since then, it's been, he has this standard of everyone's in the gym pushing each other. This team is really cool because they're all very, very connected, playing for each other. Other teams were like that too, but there's something just a little bit different about how this one had to come together. And, it's the fact that everyone knows when they come into this gym, they expect to be going back to a Final Four. I mean, he recruited a Netherlands outside hitter. Her name's Dagmar Maurits. You won't see her on the court much because she got injured, but one of the first things she said to me was like, I just won the Dutch Cup with my team in the Netherlands, and I wanna make history with Pitt and win a national title with them. And that's been the mentality from not only the girls that came back, like Olivia Babcock said to me about a year ago after they lost last year's Final Four, we'll be back. Just simply put, and that's just kind of the mentality. And this coach, Dan Fisher, really pushes them to be their best players, to be their best selves, and to really fight and play for each other more than anything. Simply because you can't, like a lot of people like to say that Pitt is a one-man band and Olivia Babcock, but she will be the first to tell you she can't do it without her teammates. And that's kind of the culture that Dan Fisher has made. Very supportive. Everyone wants to help each other out to get to this stage. And they really want to win a national championship and really want to get over that Final Four hump.
Well, that'll be the interesting part. And for some people who haven't watched volleyball, all that often, I've been a regular watcher. One, I like watching it because I'm watching the officials. I do the same thing in volleyball that I used to do in football. Is I watch it from the officials' point of view and how they're doing their mechanics, how they're doing their motions, what they're looking at, what they're seeing, so that I can make myself a better official for the girls that I officiate for. But bring us inside those arenas. Some people may think that volleyball is like just a version of golf, and you get little play class. There are some rowdy crowds at a volleyball game.
Yeah, so Pitt sold out majority of its home matches this year at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. It is their last year at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse because they're moving to a different arena next year. But I have to wear earplugs at those games if I want to, not go deaf by the time I'm 50. So it's very loud. These fans are very passionate, whether in person or social media. I run a podcast with a former Pitt player named Kat Flood, and this year I've had so many fans come up to me and talk to me, just like sit down and want to talk volleyball with me because this fan base is super passionate, whether it's, not just Pitt volleyball, but across the nation. There's some really, really passionate, sometimes a little too passionate fan bases. Nebraska and Louisville have really, really passionate fan bases, bit of a rival for Pitt. But it's just been really cool to see the growth of the sport because this is my third season covering this team, and they weren't selling out every single game at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse when I first started. And now they are. And now they're really filling up. They play a couple of games in the Peterson Event Center, which is where the basketball team plays for Pitt. And they fill that up too. The Elite Eight game probably would have been sold out had there not been about 4 inches of snow coming down.
Right.
And it's just really cool to see everyone. The Texas A&M Nebraska regional final had 1.2 million watchers. Like, people want to watch the sport, and it's really cool to see because it's just growing more and more and more.
Well, and that's the thing that has to help elevate the sport when you've got so many programs that can compete for a national title. Nebraska really, as of late, had been kind of the standard for women's volleyball, and to see them knocked off before the Final Four is something not a lot of people expected.
I definitely didn't expect it. I mean, I've been saying since day one. I mean, Pitt's first game of the season was against Nebraska, and they looked like a complete team at the end of August, which you don't necessarily see all the time. And so the fact that they were eliminated was just jaw-dropping to me. But it also is really cool because now you're in a Final Four field in which a team is either going to be getting their first or second national championship. It's none of the traditional blue bloods are in the field in Nebraska, Louisville, Penn State, Texas. Like, it's really cool that either Kentucky or Wisconsin is going to get their second, or Texas A&M and Pitt are going to get their first, because it's not the case. Like, there hasn't been a NCAA tournament without one of those 4 teams since, I want to say, 2012. So it's really cool to see. And for Pitt fans, especially because Pitt is the most experienced in a Final Four field at this point, it's just seeing the sport grow and seeing the teams come up has been really cool, because you don't necessarily, it used to be the same couple of teams every year, UCLA, Penn State, Nebraska, and now to see like Pitt, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and now, I mean, A&M's the darling of the tournament. it's really good for the sport, even though, maybe Nebraska's the loudest, the biggest fan base, but the fact that a lot of people are going to be able to come this weekend because ticket prices have gone down, and just have their first entry to the sport it's awesome to see. And I hope Kansas City is really able to embrace it.
Yeah, it should be a really fun atmosphere. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if it's not the first year, it might be the second year. But is this the first year it's going to be on national over the air TV on ABC?
I
Because I believe it's just been on ESPN before.
I think the past 2 seasons, 23 and 24, the final was on ABC.
Okay.
But it is newer, just within the past 4 to 5 years that they have started doing that. They had their first regional final on ABC for the first time in Nebraska and Texas A&M. But for the most part, it's been on ESPN. But that national final, will be on ABC.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting final, and I'm looking forward to the matchups tonight. Take us a little bit quickly inside of that. Give us a little breakdown of the Pitt matchup that they're going to face coming up tonight.
Yes. So this is really cool that there were only 2 collegiate players that made the U.S. senior national team this past summer, and they're both going to be playing against each other in Olivia Babcock and Logan Lidnicki, and they play the same spot too. They both are right side hitters. But then you're going to really be combining, like, both teams are really good blocking teams. Yeah, Afena Casapala from Texas A&M might be the best blocker in the nation, but Pitt has one of the best blocking teams in the nation. But I really think this game is going to come down to serve receive, because both teams have phenomenal hitters, really solid blockers, but both teams have wicked serves, and whoever's able to handle that is really going to be able to pull ahead. But make sure you're keeping your eyes on Olivia Babcock and Logan Lidnicki, because they have the chance to. Olivia goes off every game, but the 2 of them have the chance to lead their teams to their first ever national championship game.
And we've got a couple other teams. The other matchup coming up this evening is going to feature Wisconsin and Kentucky, a couple of programs known for other sports. Wisconsin's been a big name in football for a while. Kentucky, obviously, a blue blood on the men's basketball stage. But they are going to come together, and it should be a very interesting match. I watched Wisconsin beat Texas, and they played a heck of a match. I thought they were faltering there in that fourth set when it got off to a slow start. But then they rallied, took control, and their front court, their front line really took control of that match against Texas.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin is playing the best volleyball out of the 4 teams right now. I mean, when you have a front line of Charlie Furbringer setting to Mimi Collier and Carter Booth at the middle blocker, they're all just so powerful. Even though only Carter Booth on that team has ever played in a Final Four, this team looks ready to compete for a national championship. And they're really going to give Kentucky a run for their money, because Kentucky and Pitt have had fairly easy tournament paths to get to this point, whereas Wisconsin hasn't. Neither has Texas A&M. But the thing with Kentucky is they have probably 2 of the best outside hitter duo in the nation, in Ava Hudson and Brooklyn DeLay, maybe the best libero in Molly Tuozo. It's going to be, I think, both of these matches, but this Wisconsin-Kentucky match is really going to come down to the wire. And I think that's just, again, great for the sport. Who wants to watch a sweep in the national semifinals? Like, I want to see an all-out battle, and all 4 of these teams can really, take it to that 5th set. I wouldn't be surprised if both matches come down to just a few points.
And that's the other key with volleyball is, one, it's usually very close, very tight. You don't see too many, like in a basketball game, you might have a 25-point blowout, a 30-point blowout. You're not going to see a 10 or 15-point blowout among these quality teams in a setting like this Final Four.
No, I think the largest gap that Pitt won a game up until this point was 8 points, and which is still, a decent amount, but it's still close for, maybe a 1 seed playing against an unseeded team. But of recent memory, the Final Fours, sometimes they are 3 and 4 setters, but they're never big gap 3 and 4 setters. It's always going to come down to that 25-23, or the A&M and Nebraska case, it was like 38-36. So you have to win by 2 points, and it usually comes down to that.
And it's really, like I said, for me, it's fun because I see in these women playing this game a purity and an enjoyment that's missing. And I've been a college football fan for 45 years, since I was a young boy. And I've been a college basketball fan for the same amount, probably 50 years. So I'll date myself. But I see in these women playing not only at the high school level, but also watching on TV, just that joy of sport and that joy of competing that hasn't been, I don't want to say corrupted, but maybe tarnished a little bit by the influence of money and power. There's just a simple joy in the way they play this game.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, you're still going to see, money tossed around to get certain players, but
Sure.
everyone who's on that court is just trying to win. And I think what's really unique about women's volleyball is truly every single point matters. You can say that about other sports, but it really does. You have to win a point in order for the rally to be over. And I think that's really cool. And I think you see the intensity and how important every point is. And that's where you get that pride, is they take so much pride in getting a point against these really tough teams. And they're also just, really happy to see the growth of the sport, whether it's the younger girls watching on the sidelines or seeing stands fill up over and over again. Like, it's a really cool thing to be a part of, to watch not only the sport itself grow, but the fan base grow, and watch these girls really just get to soak it in. Because, like you said, maybe basketball and football is a little bit more jaded right now, but volleyball is just pure fun right now.
And that is perfect. We're going to end it right there. Abby Schnable, thank you so much for joining us. Abby is the Pitt Panther beat writer for women's volleyball at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Go over to the paper, check her out, give her a follow on social media. Find the Where's your podcast, Abby? If folks want to tune in.
It's on Apple Music and on Spotify. You can also find us on YouTube at PG Pitt. We're under the PG Sports umbrella on the podcasting channels, but definitely give it a listen, because you're getting insights from a former 4-time Final Four player.
Awesome. Abby Schnable, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the games this evening. We'll be looking for it. I'm going to be glued to the chair watching myself, and we'll see what happens over the weekend and crown ourselves a national champion in women's volleyball.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. And we'll be right back on the Sports IQ after a quick timeout.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here. The Sherrone Moore situation continues. USA Today receiving a statement from the University of Michigan saying the staffer involved in the Sherrone Moore saga was not fired due to policy involving supervisor-employee relationships. Of course, if you read the court documents from his appearance on Friday, the woman attempted to end the relationship, which had gone on for multiple years. On Monday, he then sent texts and phone calls to her that were unreturned. That action prompted her to then go to university officials. On Tuesday, he was then fired. On Wednesday, they had looked into this before, had no proof it was going on. But again, that was the case there. So again, Moore fired last Wednesday and now faces 3 charges, including a felony for his actions afterwards. He actually entered her home without permission and allegedly threatened to kill himself. But anyway, that's again all part of court documents there out of Michigan. By the way, Michigan's still looking for a new head coach. A week later, not hearing much at all in terms of who could replace him there. An interim coach, Biff Pokey, will coach them in the bowl game. Okay, so that's the coaching carousel is extended because of the crazy Moore situation there in Ann Arbor. We're about to get into the quarterback carousel as the transfer portal opens here in a couple of weeks. And one name in there that's very intriguing, a name you probably haven't heard of or even thought about, is the name of Aaron Philo. And you ask, Larry, who is Aaron Philo? Well, he is the star recruit from 3 years ago out of a private school there that's one of the top private schools in the state of Georgia in terms of football, and was in line to be the heir apparent to Haynes King, who's out of eligibility, was a Heisman candidate early in the season as they had the hot start there, undefeated for the Yellow Jackets. Well, Philo is going to be that guy. Well, his offensive coordinator is leaving Georgia Tech to go down to work at Florida for their new head coach. And of course, we just reported Florida's quarterback, DJ Lagway, who was at one point the savior of the program, was going to turn things around for former coach Billy Napier. He just announced, the word came out, he is going to be entering the portal next month. So you read through the tea leaves, it appears that Philo is going to follow his offensive coordinator potentially down to Florida. So we will see what happens there. There's that. And then in the NFL, Puka Nacua, the star wide receiver for the LA Rams, could be fined after saying that NFL referees are just the worst and accused them of throwing flags and calling penalties just to get on TV. Nacua made these comments on an online streaming platform with millions of subscribers. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. NFL tonight, it's the great matchup in the NFC West. Both teams 11-3, the Rams and Seahawks. We'll see. I don't know if Nacua gets flagged for offensive pass interference during the game, and if it's somebody wanting to get on TV. We will see what happens. But a great contest now as we get closer to the end of the regular season. All right, still more to come right now. We'll talk a little more NFL with JJ Stankovitz here coming up, and then more conversation as well. Beware of signing that quarterback to that massive contract. We'll talk about that coming up here on the Sports
Packages start at $29.99 a month with signed agreement. Restrictions apply. Speak to a representative for complete offer details. See Vivint.com for license details. Terms and conditions apply.
Homeowners, if you're looking for the best in home security and smart home technology at a price you can actually afford, we have great news. Now you can get Vivint's award-winning home security systems starting at about $1 a day. U.S. News and World Report has recognized Vivint as the best professionally installed home security system of 2022. And right now, you can get Vivint's home security technology for about $1 a day. Plus, get free professional installation from a licensed technician. Protect your home and loved ones for as low as $1 a day. Call right now for your free home security consultation.
800-613-8053. 800-613-8053. 800-613-8053. That's 800-613-8053.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
One of the great NFL stories this season has been watching the up and down of the Indianapolis Colts, both on and off the field. And to talk more about that, JJ Stankovitz, he's a team writer, also a podcast host. And if you go to games there at Lucas Oil, he is the PA announcer. So when he opens his mouth in a moment, you're going to go, yeah, that guy's got some great pipes. JJ, welcome to Sports IQ.
You know, it's interesting, Larry. My voice for doing PA is a little different than my conversational voice.
Sure.
My PA voice is more like this, and my conversational voice is kind of more like this. So there's a bit of a difference. I can click it on and off, although I guess the PA voice is starting to bleed into my conversational voice a little more and more, so my wife tells me.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Well, you get more authoritarian. You probably come home from games. It's hard to take it down a notch. Like you're in game mode, right? You walk in Sunday nights and you got to ease back into your regular conversation.
Yeah. I mean, the funny part about the whole thing, Larry, is because I'm also, the team writer. The game ends and I go down to the locker room and I got to go talk to, Alec Pierce or I guess now Phillip Rivers about what happened in the game. And I got to, snap right back into, okay, you're not doing PA anymore. You're just talking to someone normally. So it is a little different there.
That's funny. We'll talk about this Phillip Rivers thing. And this is one that obviously we all were just enamored with, this guy coming off the sidelines, literally the high school coaching football somewhere, coming in. And I thought he was fine for a guy who hadn't played in 5 years. Didn't win the game, but I thought he was fine.
Yeah, he executed what the Colts wanted to accomplish against Seattle, which was ball control, a lot of running plays to Jonathan Taylor, mixing in, Amir Abdullah in there. And then when we needed to make a throw, he did make a couple of throws. He had the one down the far sideline to Alec Pierce on the back shoulder. He ripped one to Tyler Warren on an inbreaker earlier in the game that set up the first touchdown he had in 5 years to Josh Downs. But most of it was hey, get to the line and get us into the right play. And that's where Phillip Rivers kind of sharing a brain with Shane Steichen really played in here, where those two guys see the game the same way. Mm-hmm. So they see offense the same way, which allows Phillip to get the Colts into the right play based on the defense. And there's no defense that Phillip Rivers hasn't seen. There's no disguise he hasn't seen. Something Alec Pierce told me after the game was that, they have rules for when to check into stuff based on what they're seeing. And there was one play during the game where Alec's looking out and he's going, well, I think, this looks like cover 3. And Phillip's like, they're bluffing. And Alec's like, really? And sure enough, they were bluffing. Mm-hmm. And Alec's like, I don't know how he does that. But that's just who Phillip Rivers is at 44. He is very much a sentient brain playing quarterback who still can make a couple of throws. Now, he's not going to push it downfield the way he used to, but he's going to get the Colts into the right plays. They're going to be able to execute the game plan that they devise. And I think that's kind of where they're going to go forward with Phillip Rivers here, starting with the 49ers on Monday.
Yeah. And that's a key. Like you said, he didn't make mistakes. He didn't kill you. And I think that's where the piece of people who were like, why bring this guy? Why do this? Or nobody else? Like you said, he knows the coach they think is one. So it was a perfect fit in terms of who could walk in on a 5-day notice and make this happen. Well, he's the one guy that could, because like you said, he knows what's going on there. You guys already had a great story before that with Daniel Jones coming in. He was obviously signed as a, backup and a guy who had some experience, but I think we lose track of, we get excited about the first round pick and he's going to start as a rookie and will it translate? And it usually doesn't. It takes so much time to adjust. The fact he had that experience before, I think, is what made him so special. And the Colts off to the great start before he was injured.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about another guy who sees football the same way as Shane Steichen. It turned out Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen are a very good match together. Where I think some of what Daniel Jones did with the Giants, obviously it was really disjointed the first 3 years he was there, with, coaches getting fired, just different offensive schemes coming in. Brian Daboll comes in, and that 2022 offense that did have success and the Giants went to the playoffs kind of felt almost like a training wheels offense. And then when they tried to expand on it, or the league figured them out, or both, it fell apart very quickly. This was not a training wheels offense for Daniel Jones. Yes, there was a lot of play action, a lot of RPOs, but when Shane Steichen needed Daniel Jones to drop back and drive a pass through some funky zone coverage, he was able to do it. I think the Arizona game, I know the Cardinals season has not been very good, but if you go look at that game, that defense, that is a tough defense to go against with the way that they disguise pre-snap and even post-snap. And Daniel Jones went down. He had a fantastic game. He did throw one pick, but that wasn't because he got fooled by a coverage. He made some really awesome throws in that game. And that was the game in week 6 where I think I sat up in my chair and I said, I think this guy's legit. I think this is a solution for the Colts at quarterback. I think you can break this season into 2 periods for the Colts. The first is before the bye, when the Colts are 8-2 and Daniel Jones was not playing with a fractured fibula. After the bye, Jones, I think it's not totally confirmed when it happened, but it seems like it probably happened against the Falcons in week 10. After the bye, that did limit Daniel Jones. Now, full credit to him that he's I'm playing through this. He had to play through, I had players tell me the amount of pain that he must be playing through is immense. And the toughness that he showed there, but it limited his mobility. It limited his ability to kind of get outside the pocket on some of those things that became the Colts' bread and butter on offense. And then it did limit the Colts' offense, where they had to get into more of those 3rd and long straight dropbacks. Teams started playing a lot of man and sending a lot of pressure, knowing that Daniel couldn't really move all that much. And it did start to work. So I think as you look forward, if the Colts are able to get an extension done with Daniel Jones, obviously with the Achilles, that's going to complicate things in terms of his recovery. But if Daniel Jones is able to be mobile, not necessarily as a scrambler, but in terms of moving the pocket, that is where I think this offense can find success again. So we'll see where things go in the next couple of months. But long term, there are plenty of throws that Daniel Jones made this year that made me think, this guy you pair him with Shane Steichen again, they're not going to regress. They can even grow off of what they did this year.
Yeah. With the Achilles injury, I mean, that's usually at least a 12-month injury. I mean, a recovery. So figure probably next November he comes back. I mean, maybe a little
Is
sooner.
it though?
But, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
we've seen Aaron Rodgers make a very rapid recovery at 40. Kirk Cousins is older. Kirk had his, he did his in like late October of 23. He came back and was ready for week 1 in 24.
Okay.
I think a lot of us here in Indy certainly had the same thing you just said, Larry, because Tyrese Halliburton's Achilles is a 12-month recovery, but it's a different sport, different requirements, different pressures put on that part of your body.
That's fair.
Whereas, even Dio Dangbo, so he's on the Bears now, but Dio was here with the Colts when he tore his Achilles late January of 2021 before the draft. The Colts took him with a 2nd-round pick. He came back and played 9 months later. I think it was like end of October he was back.
Okay.
So, if you're looking, and that was, that's a 9-month recovery. That still is very much lengthy, but he still came back and played 10 games that year in 2021. So what I would just say is, like, I wouldn't rule out Daniel Jones for any part of next season until we get to probably like late May, early June, kind of through OTAs. We probably wouldn't be out there for those, but that's when you might get more of an indication of like, hey, he's tracking toward being ready at this date. That's when I think we know.
Okay. So it sounds like, well, then that changes my question. My question was, what do they do in the interim? But it feels like the interim really is these next few weeks, and it's Phillip Rivers, and then with the eye toward him being ready. Now, where does Anthony Richardson fall in all of this? I mean, obviously, he was wanting a trade when Jones was named the starter. I understand that. Is he now, I guess, content to be a backup? Do you see him possibly being moved in the offseason, or where does he stand right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think if the Colts, had their druthers here and Anthony Richardson didn't sustain that freak injury before week 6, you wouldn't see Phillip Rivers here. It'd be Anthony Richardson out there.
Sure. Yeah.
He would have stepped in against Jacksonville and he would have played against Seattle. But the reason why Phillip was brought in was because Anthony's on IR and Riley Leonard kind of popped up with this knee injury that didn't wind up limiting him in practice last week. But coming out of the game, you're thinking, oh, is Riley going to be able to go? And if he can't, like, oh my God, our season's on the line. Let's see if Phil, can do it. For Anthony, though, I mean, he's still under contract, and I think everything I've heard is that he's been very much engaged behind the scenes here. Obviously, with the eye injury, that really did complicate things for him. But if Daniel Jones is not able to go next year, or the Colts are not able to sign him to an extension, I have no idea, but I wouldn't just flippantly rule out the possibility that Anthony Richardson could be an option for them. I don't know. They might explore other avenues there. And the Colts do have a decision to make on his 5th-year option for 2027. I think the expectation there, based on his career, is that would be declined. But I think there still are believers in this building in Anthony Richardson and the talent he has. Now, does that mean he's going to start next year if Daniel Jones isn't ready? I don't know, but he's under contract, and until the Colts decide he's no longer under contract with them, it would remain a possibility.
Yeah. One thing we've talked about here is we're talking to JJ Stankovich, the Colts insider, does so many things for the organization, and certainly tied into it. One thing we've talked about is there was a time in the season where almost all the division leaders had bargains at quarterback, including the Colts. There's something to be said for not putting $50 million into one guy. Have you seen that around? The Patriots and the Broncos and the Colts, the Bears at one point. And I think that's something too that helps. And in terms of, and with Daniel Jones, that has to be part of it. Do you go from the 13, 14 million he's making this year? Do you bump him to a 50, or do you try to find some happy ground in the middle?
Well, I think you look at the teams that are the most analogous here would be the Seahawks and Buccaneers, where you don't have, like, the guys who are making 50 are the guys who signed extensions with their original team that drafted them. So that's your Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, kind of down that line.
Jalen Hurts,
right. But Darnold, Mayfield, Jones, those are three guys who are not with their original teams.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Darnold and Mayfield, they've bounced around to several teams before they've got these extensions. And those are not $50 million a year extensions. Those are in somewhere in the 30 to 40 range. So that, and also I think you look at the success, especially of the Seahawks and the Buccaneers early in the season. And I think you say, and the Colts too. And I think you look at those and you say, well, maybe there's this middle class of quarterback that, okay, you're not overextending for, the top of the market guy there, but you're getting someone who's a really good quarterback who fits what we do and we can build around him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that to me is very compelling around the NFL of teams. I'm interested because you're always going to get teams that are going to say, we need to draft the quarterback and develop him. Mm-hmm. That is your surest fire way to find the needle in the haystack that is Josh Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Jordan Love, those types of guys. But are there going to be more teams that say like, oh, we don't have a top 5 pick. We don't have the ability to go get this guy. So do we say, instead of signing our rookie who we drafted to this massive extension that we might immediately regret, do we say, yeah, maybe we'll try to go find that reclamation project. Maybe we'll, this guy who was drafted high, who didn't work out, let's go see if we can do something with him. He's talented. And the other part of this too, Larry, is like the Colts scouted Daniel Jones back in 2019.
Okay.
Shane Steichen scouted Daniel Jones back in 2019. He told this great story about how he went to Duke to work out Daniel Jones, but the main thing he wanted to do was see if Daniel Jones could get them into Cameron Indoor to play a game of horse. And well, lo and behold, Daniel Jones had a little bit of pull at Duke and got them into Cameron Indoor to play a game of horse. So like all these things kind of work together here, and maybe there's a team out there that also scouted Daniel Jones and says like, oh, we really liked him.
Yeah.
The Colts may have some competition to keep him around if they like. But then we'll see, if there's another guy who might pop out of there. Yeah. And it doesn't always work out, right? Like Justin Fields hasn't really worked out as that guy. Geno Smith did work out as that guy in Seattle, but hasn't so much in Las Vegas. So it's not a surefire thing, but there is maybe something too, trying to figure out that quarterback middle class and kind of growing from there.
Yeah, it's a fun game within the game, I think. I've got about 90 seconds left. I want to ask you about the ownership with Jim Irsay dying earlier this year. What has changed with his daughters taking over the organization, if anything?
I think they have all tried to, very much carry on their father's legacy, but they're all putting their own spin on it. And I can just tell you, like, we are so fortunate to have ownership here in Indianapolis that has been preparing for this moment for the last 20, 30 years. I mean, the Carly Ursay-Gordon, Casey Foyt, Kalen Jackson have all been ready for this moment. I think it happened too soon. We lost Mr. Ursay too soon here, but they're all very much prepared for it. And you look at some of the imprints that they've had on this organization so far, and it's not like they're blowing stuff up and, my dad did it this way, so we're going to do it that way. They very much tried to keep the soul of the organization where it is, and then use the knowledge that they gained over the last 20 years to grow on it and continue building it just like their father would have liked. So I think we've got some of the best ownership in the NFL here. I've got to know our ownership, personally, and they are fantastic people. They take care of their employees. They take care of the football side and the business side as well. And I really can't say enough good things about them as, an employee who works here. They are fantastic.
That's awesome. It sounds a bit about what's happened in Kansas City after Lamar Hunt passed away and his children taking over and what they've done with that. Like you said, the legacy of that. He was such a big part of what the organization did, building the franchise from the start. And now they've taken off. Obviously had great success here in the past decade. And hopefully the same happens for the Colts. JJ, we're out of time, but man, appreciate your time. Great to get the insights. Happy holidays. Enjoy this end of the season. And hopefully we can call on you again and get some more inside information as things come about.
All right back at you, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. JJ Stankovitz, once again, a team writer, also a podcast host, and he is the Stadium PA announcer there at Lucas Oil Stadium. Talking about the Colts, and it's been such a crazy, fun year, but one of the more interesting stories in the NFL this season. Okay, the Sports IQ, we've got more to come after this.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. That's 800-215-0341.
A big story down in Miami right now. The Dolphins benching Tua Tagovailoa for this weekend's game against the Bengals. They will start rookie Quinn Ewers instead. The head coach saying, quote, everything is on the table. Tua has really struggled lately. They've won a lot of games, but not because of his play. And even his numbers Monday night in the loss to Pittsburgh weren't bad, but a lot of that was done in the fourth quarter after they were already behind and playing catch up. Tua just 65 yards through the first three quarters. And this season has a league-leading 15 interceptions. That's also a career high. Now keep in mind, Tua is one of 11 quarterbacks right now in the NFL with an average salary of $50 million a year. That means it could be really tough to move him with his injury history, and cutting him would be almost impossible, as his cap number, producer Tony, is like $56 million for next year. You can't have that kind of empty space on your cap and try to build a competitive team. That is one of those that when you look at the it's a gamble, right? I mean, you don't know the injury is going to happen when you sign these guys, and then if they don't pan out or something goes wrong, now you're stuck.
Yeah, I mean, you're in cap jail basically because of that contract, and you don't know what you have. Look, give the Broncos credit; they were in the same spot a few years ago.
Yeah,
and they said we're going to eat it. We're going to eat Russell Wilson's deal. We're going to trade him. Yeah, nobody's going to want to pay him, but we're going to get him off this roster, get him somewhere else, and we're just going to eat that charge. And it led to them getting Bo Nix, and look where they are now. Sometimes, if you're the Miami Dolphins, you might say, look, do I really want to eat this? No, but I'm going to, because this ain't working. Yeah, I'm going to suffer for a year or two, whatever the heck it is, but it might lead to something better down the road if you get a better draft pick. And, to all these teams that have been eliminated, they've got to figure out what's on their roster.
Yeah. Like you were saying, like, we know that, Kirk Cousins, you're paying him a lot of money, so play him while Penix is injured and out for the year. But is there another quarterback you want to bring in? And to your point about Denver, when you go through, other than Phillip Rivers, who is making the, veteran minimum, $1.2 million coming off the street after 5 years to be a quarterback. Other than him, Nix is the lowest paid quarterback among the 8 divisional leaders, $4.6 million this year. And so again, you eat, I think at the time, it was about $33 million, I think, that for Russell Wilson's deal that the Broncos ate. Look at how you now have spent that money elsewhere, and instead of paying one player $33 million, or now the cases with Tua, 53, 55 million, whatever the case is, 56 million, you can now go out and get other players. And if you can find that answer at quarterback, it's a similar situation in New England. Drake Mays at about 9 million. Aaron Rodgers, we've talked before, 13.5. Caleb Williams still under his rookie deal with the Bears, former number 1 overall pick, 9.8 million. Some other guys as well. CJ Stroud in Houston, Bryce Young at Carolina, they're still in the mix. They're all under $10 million. That's huge, because that's $40 million you can spend elsewhere to put your team together.
Yeah, and you've got to make up your entire roster. Look, we've talked about this a couple of times. Having that big chunk in that one quarterback, yeah, if you've got all-stars around him who are playing on the cheap, you can do it. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble at some point. Look, the Falcons know what they've got in Kirk Cousins. He probably isn't going to be back. So see what you've got in Easton Stick. Give him a few more starts. You may find something. Maybe it's a trade chip later on. Same thing with the Bengals. Why are you trotting Joe Burrow out there? He's already been hurt once this year. Yeah, he came back. Okay, you might have had a shot at the playoffs. Well, that's done. You're over. You're finished. Let Joe Burrow sit down. Give Jake Browning some more. So forget Joe Flacco. That ship has sailed. Give Jake Browning a few more starts. See if you have anything there. If you don't, you got to go out and get a backup quarterback too, because Jake Browning's not the answer.
Right.
Solve some questions about some things that are going to affect your team in 2026. And that goes for all positions. Yes, Myles Garrett is chasing the sack record. Okay. If I were the Browns are doing a good job with quarterback. We had, the deal with Dylan Gabriel. He got hurt. Here comes Shador. You've got now good data points for each one to see who might be in the mix. Once that Myles Garrett gets his record, shut him down. You don't need Myles Garrett getting hurt in week 16 or 17. We've seen enough Achilles, ACL injuries, especially when it's cold, especially when these fields are a little less forgiving when it's really cold. You don't need that. Because you lose Myles Garrett for your team, you're done next year as well.
Yeah. And now you may have a quarterback that's playing well, but now your defense is not playing the way it should be. So yeah, totally agree. All right. Moment of All is up next.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Okay, time now for a moment of all. And Olivier Rio has been such a novelty act at Florida that even some national news organizations done stories on him. He's 7'9". He is the tallest recorded player in college basketball history. And he made history himself on Wednesday night, getting his first dunk, his first point scored in a college game for the defending champion Florida Gators, and he did it almost without even leaving his feet. 7 feet 9 inches. Even the crowd in a blowout win over St. Francis were calling, "We want Ollie! We want Ollie!" And they got him, and they got history as well. Truly a moment of all. Thanks to our guest today. Thanks to you for stopping by. It's a Sports IQ. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.